To no one's surprise, our recent timeline has been nothing but Wanda lately. But I'm beginning to think that this timekeeper here isn't exactly the one we should be trusting to keep our time in order. Today, I believe we'll come to find that she's been at this time traveling thing way too long, to the point of borderline insanity even, all the while being a bit too cocky too, at least when it comes to her affinity to shadow magic. We'll break down her animated short, we'll examine some hopefully relevant examinations, and we will ultimately end with more questions than answers most likely, because that's the Clay way. Now, I haven't had a ton of time to truly dive deep as of yet, however I trust that what we will bring up will still spark more discussion anyways. So without further ado, let's first ask why the Shadow Army was so persistent. Because most of the context we can pull from would kinda tell us that they do otherwise. If we were to take a snippet from Wigfrid's short, while also applying what we have learned from watching Wilson build his portal, Wardley lose his family, George Witherspoon even bet his life, and plenty more, we know that Maxwell, quote-unquote, they, and to an extent Charlie nowadays, always target our survivors at their most vulnerable. Wigfrid's career was failing, and she was willing to do anything to save it, even if it meant shaking hands with a dapper shadow fellow made out of newspaper clippings, for Pete's sake. But not Wanda. Wanda was literally being chased down by these entities, and who knows for how long that was going on too. So what did she do to piss them off so much, and should the others be kinda worried about that? Yes, they should be, as she kinda made a deal with someone or something that she shouldn't have. It is well known by now that examining a gestalt gives away the whole shebang, but it does also eliminate the potential of any of this having to actually deal with the moon side of things. So she's kind of in the same boat as the rest of us when it comes to altar, Wagstaff maybe even potentially, and all that other nonsense. Now, that is definitely not to say that she isn't still playing with fire, as even if she doesn't know much, she's still begging for the chance to. Examining lots of the Eye of the Storm content leads to her talking about potential. The potential for what, though, you ask? Well, I'm not actually convinced that we know quite yet, but with this would-be granny absolutely yearning for more power, all the while not actually respecting what she already has, kinda scares me. She makes herself seem desperate to have wanted the powers of the Celestials herself, and doesn't even question using mysterious powers now and then in the first place. But while all that is going on, she is simultaneously unaware of how nonchalant she comes across when it comes to her own connection to the shadows, which are the second half of the power struggle in the Constant. Seriously, she calls shadow magic a tool left and right, and questions why she shouldn't be allowed to use one of the most powerful powers there is. She also feels like she's still free from the grip of these entities, and boasts about outsmarting them, even when she's literally in the Constant after being pulled in by them as she speaks. And she also really doesn't seem afraid to have others messing with time themselves, even though it was her timeline tomfoolery that led her here in the first place. I don't trust her. Nor does Maxwell of all people. But I think you're bang on the money, Maxwell. She not only doesn't know what she's doing, she doesn't know who she's doing it for, potentially. So to wrap up this first segment on shadows, and this quote-unquote deal she might have made, I would like to present a couple last questions. What if she already made it? What if this future she's been running from for so long is actually her present? What if she has already seen this cursed life of hers, and after traveling timeline after timeline to escape the end for so long, this fracture is finally what led her to the Constant and made her the Trojan horse that the shadows have been waiting for? And what leads me to ask all of this, while also seeing her shadow become a literal shadow hand at the end of her shorts? Oh, I don't know, folks. Just her examination of the literal Trojan horse trinkets. So nothing too on the nose, I suppose. It's all food for thought. But now comes the second biggest question. The heck did all of this cracked timeline nonsense actually mean? Why was she shown Wilson and Willow alone? if she's seen Charlie on the throne, does she actually know where her powers are coming from then? She was shown the Matthias puzzle, Alter even, the events of the Eye of the Storm, and even Wagstaff's doings. So what, how, when, and if? There are lots of questions, but also lots of timelines. And unfortunately, I'm in the boat of thinking that that might be all we can take from this. I'm not saying that the information in her head won't be important to the overarching plot later, but the explanation for her familiarity with all of our survivors and some of the actions they have already taken as we speak is just simply explained through her being shown all those timelines at once, potentially now even seeing them at all times too. I don't think she's just the missing piece meant to connect everything and everyone that we've seen so far. I know it's boring and kind of goes against the hype of a new survivor thrown into the endless mix of dread, but I truly believe it's best we take her as it is, a meta time traveler who only knows as much as she's been told and nothing more. And I believe this is very evident in the fact that it's only Wilson, Willow, and Maxwell that get timeline-related examinations from her, while all the others mostly just get a hi, a bye, a no time to chat, or all of the above sort of deal. But oh yes, folks, she also just has as many questions for Wagstaff as we do ourselves at the end of the day. But to continue on that thread for just a moment, while also connecting this to her potentially having already seen the end, like I alluded to earlier, just read her examination of the lunar essence extractor here. She says that she should have seen Wagstaff, quote-unquote, stealing some of the power of the Celestial Champion again, meaning that something like it has already happened. We have already set something in motion, folks. And unfortunately, I don't think that's a good thing, because when she sees a moon dial, all moon glassed over, mind you, she isn't very keen on the potential of the current timeline, as you can see. But again, I'm thinking she only, quote-unquote, knows what she's seen and can't actually travel all that far back on the timeline. At least not the constants, mind you. She has her limits now that she's here with us, as she cannot see back to when the ancients were worshipping the moon in the ancient archive because she wasn't shown it. Again, I know it's a dull explanation for such an awesome part of her short, but I honestly think it's just Clay confirming a multiverse of sorts within their own created universe, if you know what I mean. And if you don't follow that, just see how she reacts to a clean sweeper of all things. Folks, I think it's all just a meta reference sort of deal. I don't know, but it's even more food for thought. But to wrap up the day, let's just have some short fun connecting some potential dots, yes. Like how them swirlies you've all given me crap for are going to mean something someday, I just know it. But the heck you want about Beard, and how do they relate to Wanda here? Well, cause her backtrack watch has them on it, everyone. They're right there, clear as day. And where have we also seen these symbols before? Oh, all over the dang timelines, but most notably atop Robert Wagstaff's Voxola radio company where Wanda worked, and on almost every single radio we have ever seen outside of the Constant, which is a key detail, but of course, most recently in the ancient archives, and or on another one of Wagstaff's inventions, the Lunar Siphonator. Is there an actual connection between Wanda and Wagstaff like we first speculated because of this, or is Beard just talking out his viz butts? I don't know. But speculate away. And finally, the topic people kept bringing up to me over and over and over again. When and where is Wanda when she first backtracks her way to safety? Well, on paper it's very easy to see that she is relatively close to where Wes Street performed only decades earlier. Study the house on the left there, and notice its designs on the windows, walls, and all that nonsense in case you don't notice anything else in this upcoming image, as yes, they're the exact same frickin' house. We can also see the same building sitting further behind the streets, we can see the same fence, you name it. not. The only difference is our friend Wes is not exactly in the early Victorian age, while Wanda is. And that is also very easy to see just given how these folks are dressed compared to those around Wes, of course. What does this mean exactly? Yeah, probably not too much. But I'm also still not convinced that Wanda wasn't jumping timelines in her short, so it might be more of a reference thing than anything. But there you have it, everyone. A totally last-minute dive into Wanda's short, her examinations, and potentially how it all fits together. At least initially here. As I said, I didn't have a lot of time today, so I guarantee that there is something I'm missing, as I couldn't spend all day looking at every examination, if you know what I mean. But I feel as if I still kinda touched the big ones. Her connection to the shadows, her want for the knowledge and power of the Celestials, her potential connection to Wagstaff, and of course, her understanding of the timelines. All of the timelines. Well, the one she's been shown, of course, as I'm sticking to that one. But let me know your thoughts on it all, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.